Listen to this episode if you would say you have like 10 thoughts at once and you feel like you're kind of just buzzing all the time as an entrepreneur. Today, this might be one of the more impactful episodes that I share. It is an anecdotal case study of me as an entrepreneur. It is going to be raw, it is going to be real, it is going to be authentic, and you are getting my real things that I have done to actually see a change in how I operate as a business owner. I didn't realize how dysregulated I was until it stopped. And now I look back and I say, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense that this wasn't just me. This isn't just how I operate. This was because my nervous system was out of whack. And we're going to talk about what that means, how to actually change it. What are the practical, tangible things that I did? How did I feel? So you can see maybe your nervous system is dysregulated. Maybe you want to try one or two or all of the things, and then how I actually feel at the end. I know right now that by the end of this episode, you will say, I might relate to that. And right now, whether you know your nervous system is dysregulated or not, I know that this is going to be helpful in some way. Honestly, for the last few years, I've been telling people, I just feel like I have like 12 thoughts at once. I feel like I am buzzing all of the time. I was taking weekends off, evenings. I had all of the things, all of the structures there, but I still kind of felt like I was buzzing. And this all goes back to that same conversation of, I just think that this is normal because it's how everybody talks about being a business owner. I talk about this freepreneur lifestyle. And this is another great step into building a more freepreneur lifestyle. Because if I can't take a weekend off without still feeling like I'm buzzing all the time, that doesn't actually feel like freedom. I'm still thinking about my business. I'm still beholden to my business. We have to be able to create this balance. This episode is not about slowing down your ambition. It's not about turning it off. This is about being able to hold it, sustain it, and master it, and still enjoy your life in the downtime. Because when I was dysregulated, I wasn't actually always working full time, probably even. There was times where I was working 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week, and I was still not feeling great when I wasn't working. And it was honestly the reason that I wasn't working was because I said, I just need more time away. I'm just stressed out. I must just have too much on my plate. So I would take time away, but my time away would never actually feel rejuvenating. And I actually didn't think anything was wrong with that. I just thought that I was kind of a busy person. I just run as a high vibration. I run as all the time. I just kind of feel like I am buzzing. I always kind of felt slightly anxious. I was wired, but I was tired and I didn't really want to do certain things. I felt like I could get irritated easily. The fan on in the bathroom across the hall from my office would kind of drive me crazy because it was like my brain was doing everything. I just felt overstimulated. That was the word. I would have brain fog. I would have these productivity spikes, but then I would be just absolutely crashed and say, nope, I don't want to do any of that anymore. I kind of just felt on all the time. And even when I was masking it by kind of taking a break, I would take my evenings off, but still it was more along the lines of disassociating than anything else. I was trying to run away from my buzzing feeling, but it got to a point that I was buzzing even when I was trying to disassociate. I would find myself on my phone watching a movie or scrolling Pinterest on my iPad, trying to do so many things to just keep my brain busy. And I said, oh, I just must have a really short attention span. My brain is just going and going. But what was actually happening is I was just fueling my overstimulation with more stimulus. And so honestly, about 3 to 5 years ago, my friends can attest to this, is I would have told you that I didn't really know what anxiety felt like. I didn't really know what true anxiousness felt like in a day-to-day basis. And I used to hold a lot more than I hold right now. If you know anything about my story, you know that I ran my family's business and I was working so many more hours. I had a lot of pressure on myself. I had a lot of expectations on me and I had a lot on my plate. Not that I don't have a lot on my plate now, but I really knew how to hold it better. I was less stressful. My life was a lot easier. I was living indoors. If you know anything, my family owned an adventure resort. I lived in a tent. We had like one shower for the 40 of us. It was just how my summers went. And yes, I would be buzzing there, but I never really felt anxious to the point of how I felt these last couple of years. My life is more stable. I have a relationship. I have a home. I have a successful business. I have a schedule. Why am I getting more and more anxious? But it was truly just my baseline these last couple of years. And I blamed it on my hormones. If you've been here for any amount of time, you know that I've had a hormone journey for the last few years. And, I've talked about this freepreneur lifestyle for years now of me really wanting to be able to enjoy my life outside of business. And I was doing things to do so. I was enjoying my life. I would go and I would hike, or I would camp, or I would, go to yoga. I would go to dance with my friends, or whatever that might be. Like, I had things outside of business. I took time away for myself. But even when I was doing those things, in the back of my mind, my inner monologue was like, okay, when I get home, I got to do this and I got to do that. And, I almost felt borderline like paranoid that I was forgetting something. If you know kind of my past story, it makes sense. I went to a business retreat in October. And I was talking to them about feeling this way, that I could never turn off. I didn't really enjoy being alone. My husband leaves every once in a while for work. And every time he would leave, I would just feel anxious, more anxious. I would feel like my nervous system was kind of crashing, because I realized he was just my stable person. He was like my grounded nature, that when he would leave, I no longer had like the distraction of somebody that was okay. He is so much more chill than I am. He was like my grounding feature, that when he was gone, I went into fight or flight. I was talking at this business retreat to these people about how I just feel this way all the time. And it gets so much worse when my husband leaves. Can I not spend time alone? Like, what's going on? And they asked if I had talked about nervous system regulation at all. And that was where this started. This has been my focus for the last 6 months. And to say honestly, even in these last couple of weeks, I feel like kind of a new person because of these changes that I've made is an absolute understatement. So again, this episode is not about slowing down your ambition. It's about being able to hold it. It's about being able to sustain it. And it's about still enjoying life outside of it. Because I know a lot of you right now, you do go out to dinner with your families, or you do take vacations, but you also still feel guilty when you're gone. So we're going to talk about what nervous system regulation is, the key switches I made and the ones that made the biggest impact, how you can get started. I'm going to give you kind of an action list at the end of how you can get started with this, and what you might not even know that is actually making your nervous system out of whack. There was one change that I made that honestly broke my heart, but it did make a really big difference. So without further ado, we're going to dive into this. I want to take 10 quick seconds that if you're new here, this is a wild ride of an episode for you to join. My name is Madison Page. I am a business growth specialist, and I work with product-based businesses to help them grow and scale their consumer brand. We talk about marketing, we talk about branding, we talk about direct-to-consumer sales, wholesale, all sorts of things here. And of course, we talk about learning how to be a business owner, because being an entrepreneur is literally 50% of growing a business. You have to be able to be the person that can hold your business. And that's what we're talking about today. If you guys don't know, just to give you like a quick education, I just want to preface this. Your girl is not a specialist here. I'm not a scientist. I am not a doctor. I have just done my own research. I've worked with many other specialists. And what I'm teaching you today is kind of what I have learned through specialists and through my own practices. Nervous system regulation is basically your body being stuck in fight or flight. It's like the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is your body being able to actually truly rest and digest at the end of the day. I want you to ask yourself right now, do you feel like you can actually rest and digest at the end of the day? 8 p.m., how are you feeling? Are you feeling like you still have so many things to do? Are you feeling like you're content with what you did in your day? Or how are you really feeling in those times? If we are feeling kind of chronic stress, that is going to keep you in this fight or flight. If you don't ever get to rest and digest, it's going to be very hard for you to be able to actually ever mellow, actually be able to get solid sleep, actually be able to regulate yourself. So, chronic stress increases your cortisol, which affects your sleep, your blood sugar, your mood, your inflammation, which at the end of the day impacts everything. Inflammation in your body, your blood sugar, all of those things impact everything, your ability to hold any amount of stress, your ability to, refuel your body, get solid sleep. Over time, it is actually linked to burnout, anxiety, anything of those natures. We know that stress is bad at this point. A couple of statistics, 77% of people regularly experience physical symptoms because of stress, whereas a lot of times people just feel like stress is just like a mental thing, but it really can be physical. I would feel like I was like being chased by a bear. My heart would be pounding and I just never really understood. I don't know. I would have like weird pains. And now that I'm on the other side of it, it kind of all went away. Truly, habits that 85% of Americans do increase their cortisol and can amplify anxiety symptoms without us even knowing it, especially in women. Honestly, as entrepreneurs, we live in decision fatigue. We live in constant notification, financial uncertainty, social comparison, performance pressure all the time, in addition to everything going on in the world. And so, just normal life, we have so much that we hold. If you add being a mom onto that, if you add, being a friend, being a partner, we are holding a lot as a business owner. And so many things are riding on us as a business owner as well. And this is why being a business owner is a perfect recipe for nervous system dysregulation. And so I didn't really realize some of my symptoms were actually nervous system regulated. Some of my hormone issues were definitely nervous system. I would always kind of feel behind. I would never be able to fully shut off. Like I said, I was kind of buzzing. This really wasn't a personality flaw. And I remember I got to a point, I was talking to people, I was like, I don't really feel like I was always like this. And they're like, okay, well, what changed? Like my business grew. I have more on my plate. I did all of these things. And it's like, okay, well, correlation and causation, have I grown to be able to hold this, being able to actually sit with some of these feelings and what was actually happening? So I want to talk about what I actually changed in my personal protocol in order to do this. Again, these are things that specialists have given me. I've worked with mindset coaches. I went to that business retreat. These are things that I've learned personally, things that I've tried personally. I've been to some hormone specialists that definitely helped as well. And I basically want to bring to you exactly what I did. So I have 8 things here that I want to talk to you about. First things first is I actually started practicing doing only one activity at a time. What I found that I was doing is I would go on a walk at the end of my day and I would turn an audiobook on. So I would be walking, I would be listening to an audiobook while trying to decompress. I would be doing dishes and I would put a YouTube video on. I couldn't do anything in silence. I couldn't do anything without multiple stimuli. Even TV, it's sad to say, but again, I would be watching TV with my iPad up with Pinterest and sometimes scrolling on my phone. There is so many things going on, so many inputs all of the time that I started to practice on doing one thing at a time. I'm not saying that I was trying to multitask in business. I'm saying my focus in my off time, and you'll find a lot of these things were in the off time because it's us. It's kind of like the personal growth side. And again, if you've been around here for a long time, you know that I used to be a personal growth nut and I got almost too obsessed with it to the point where I was just personal growthing as opposed to living. And I took a big break. These were some of the things that I started to do that kind of started to inch me back into growth in a certain way. I would walk without podcast. I would drive with no calls. I would cook without scrolling or, having a YouTube video on. I would do full car rides with no music or anything because I was just trying to let my brain have less stimuli. We live in a truly anxious world. We live in scrolling, different stimulus every 4 seconds. We live in music and driving and friends and phone calls that I found that I wasn't doing anything without doing something else at the same time. You basically can retrain your brain into tolerating more stillness, which allows for more space to come. That was regulation. What I found when I started to do only one thing at a time, and it honestly started with me being like, I'm going to put my phone away and not bring it to the bathroom. I'm going to cook dinner tonight and not listen to a YouTube video. I'm going to go for a walk with my dog. My dog is sitting right here and he just perked up. But I'm going to do that and not listen to an audiobook or call my friend because I just want to be present and allow my body to actually go down a notch, actually be able to just see what's going on in front of me, to actually be present in one major thing. I really started to see this work after a little while. And now I kind of crave it. Like I'm on a walk and I wanted to, call my mom. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wait till after. And I can do one thing at a time. You don't always have to be doing a ton of things at once. The second one is I regulated my blood sugar. This is something that I have talked about before across the board, but I have a lot of hormonal problems. I have PCOS. I don't really know. It's kind of the chicken or the egg. Did the PCOS come first? Did the cortisol come first? We don't really know. I did get like a full panel of blood tests, and it didn't say my cortisol was actually chronically high. As usual, blood tests don't always bring back exactly what you want, especially in female hormones. But I found that I had levels of insulin resistance. So what I did is I started to eat like a low blood sugar diet, which is basically low carb, which sucks, I know, but it was low refined sugar, low carb, and I did it for like a year. And it made the biggest impact in my hormones, which then allowed me to kind of come and find some of these things. It allowed me to just operate at a better level. And now I really feel if I have a really carb heavy meal without doing some of the blood sugar regulation around it, I can really feel it in my anxiety the next day or in my buzzing, in my mental space. I don't even want to call this anxiety. I want to call it being dysregulated, right? And so regulating my blood sugar was a big one. I ate a low blood sugar diet. I ate a lot of veggies before my meals. That's a big one. I would go for like a 10-minute walk after my meals. Those are some of the big things. You had like a little tincture that I would drink before my meals. If you want one, let me know. But this absolutely helped my PCOS and any of my hormone problems. If any of my hormone sensitive gals out there, let me know. Another big one is I bought a brick. A brick is basically a device that you can magnet on your fridge. And after a certain time, it blocks all apps on your phone. So I would tell myself, I'm going to be better with my social. I'm going to be better with my social media. But then, you just find yourself scrolling and you're like, shoot, I said I was going to be better with this. So after 6 p.m. every night, all of my social media apps are blocked and I have to get up, tap my fridge in order to actually get into them. If you want the link for this, I'll put it in the show notes below. My brick device has been wonderful. It's humbling to say the least, but I know, shocking, cutting out social media helps our nervous system be able to regulate. We are not made to get the amount of inputs that we get in a single day, to see this person's morning routine and then this natural disaster that happened in the world and this political warfare or whatever going on over here and all of these people fighting in the comments. It is an absolutely crazy thing to be a part of, is to watch the data of social media. Studies show that social media use increases stress and comparison-driven anxiety across the board. Even short exposure to negative or competitive content or comments can activate a threat response in our brain because we don't know that that comment is not actually happening towards us when we're reading it. So when we read, "You're absolutely pathetic" as a comment, our brain operates as that is somebody saying it to us, even in small measures. So we have to understand that there is so much on social media. We know this by now that it's not good for us, but I work on social media all the time. I can have 8 to 10 to 12 hours of screen time during the week sometimes. And so I had to take it into my own hands and block it. And it's very humbling how many times you just go to check and then it's locked and you say, fine. And I'll lock my phone and go do something else. Your brain cannot differentiate between a physical threat, a social rejection in a comment, or a performance comparison between that person and this person's opinion over here. We're basically stressing our body out 100 times a day every time you scroll. Our brains aren't made to be jolted around like we get on our newsfeed. You're talking about somebody's morning routine and then you're talking about this and you're talking about this other thing. And then it's, this person that just made $1 million. And all of a sudden our bodies have this like natural response to do so. So I know, shocking, I started to spend less time on social media and I truly use social media like a tool now. I schedule out my content. I go onto my social media to answer my DMs and to post Instagram stories. And all weekend long, full Saturdays, I am not on social media. I might check it for like 10 minutes if I have outstanding, sales conversations in the DMs. And then I get off of social media. My content is still going out, but I allow myself to have at least a full 24 hours of a break off of social media a week. And every evening I am trying to block it. I did something for a while that I had to be standing to be on social media. I know this sounds so ridiculous, but those are the measures that we have to go. It was an addiction. Like it absolutely is. And I know so many of us are in this boat. Is like, I would stand by my fridge right next to my brick and I would unbrick and I would do all of my things and then go from there. I feel fewer cortisol spikes. I have less mental noise, more internal clarity, so much less like comparison of these things that are going on. It helped a lot. The next one was doing nothing. I literally started raw dogging hours of my day, meaning I would sit in a chair outside and not do a single thing for an hour. I would set a timer, 30 minutes. I would go on a hike and I would sit at the top of the end of my hike and I would just sit. I would find myself rushing all of the time. Even the grocery store, I was rushing. Like, I go shopping very infrequently. And when I'm shopping, you would think I am racing somebody to finish my shopping spree. I literally was just always operating fast and quick and productive. And so I started to actually just do nothing. I would sit in bed for an extra 10 minutes in the morning and just kind of like stare at the ceiling. And again, I was basically practicing allowing my brain to fully slow down, allowing my brain to fully make a change here. You can start this again by taking 10 minutes. You can start this by, your dog's outside. Just sit there. Don't scroll your phone. Just sit there and observe what's around you. Hey, I've been getting some DMs that you may not know what I do outside of hosting this podcast. I actually work with product-based business owners every single day to help them grow and scale their brand. If you really want my eyes one-on-one inside of your business to look at your strategy, to look at your funnels, to look at your data, and to develop your next campaign or bring your business or your idea to life, that is exactly what I do every single day. I've worked with 500 plus businesses across 70 different industries to help them become the next household name in their industry. If you are craving a business brain, a strategic advisor, a data-centered, obsessed person to come into your business and help you bring your idea to life, I'm your gal. Come on over to my Instagram at @thisismadison page, DM me support. Otherwise, you can click the link in the show notes to apply today. Okay, back to the episode. I went to this business retreat in October and I was talking about this and they were like, when was the last time that you just sat? It's like, never, without a podcast, without calling somebody. I'm like, years. I'm always doing something. And I would hike and I would get to the top of it and I would just, okay, great. I'm listening to music and I'm just going to turn around and keep going. Took a picture, call it good. And they literally banished me from the retreat and I had to go sit on a beach by myself for 30 minutes. And I sat out there and they were like, all right, how was your brain? And I was like, yeah, I started to get bored. I was like, let me draw in the sand. And it actually started to make me do this on a day-to-day basis. Okay, if this helps, I'm going to start doing this to fix my attention span. And was my brain starting to do to-do lists of okay, I got to do that. Okay, I got to do this other thing. Okay, I got to do this. Okay, good. Now, all of a sudden, it stopped. I could actually sit there and be like, wow, look at those birds flying around. Wow, look at that. Look at this other thing. And I started to actually just enjoy and be present as to where I am. One of the things that may have been the most helpful, and then I have one that absolutely, again, broke my heart, but it absolutely made a really big difference. This first one was I started to do mindset coaching on past business, I don't want to say traumas, but past business experiences. There were certain things. And again, if you know anything about my story, if you've listened to my TED Talk, whatever that might be, my family owned a business. It was very high pace. There was a lot of hours. I worked a lot, and I held a lot. There was a lot of expectations on me. I was very young. And ultimately, we lost the business when I took a step back. And I already had a successful business on my own. I was already running this business when we lost the company. And I basically kind of just shoved it down for a long time. I just kind of shoved it down. It didn't impact me. My life is better without it. I'll be fine. I have a successful business, whatever, right? And then I started working with somebody, Kelly Adams, you're the bomb out there. And we were talking about my nervous system here. And she was like, you are holding so much in your body. You've processed everything with your brain, but you're still tense. You're holding this in your body. So let's talk about it. I mean, it can be betrayals. It can be failed, experiences. It can be a bad investment, whatever that is for you. We have to actually process these things. And when I started to dive into why I feel the way that I feel is that I can't step away from my business, was it made sense. Was because the last time I stepped away from my family's business, everything kind of came crashing to the ground. And whether that was correlation equals causation, I don't know, but my brain linked the two. And so when I would take a step back from my business, I would feel like everything was going to crash down. And so until I closed these loops, I processed them, I started talking about them, I actually realized and I put my finger on the fact that it actually did impact me. Then I started to realize that this is just a story in my brain. And I started to say, I'm wrong. And when I would feel that, like, Maddie, you can't step away, I would regulate myself through some of these practices. Most people just kind of shove down all of these failures or, betrayals or whatever, where I actually had to process them. Logically, I knew that it wasn't a big deal, but emotionally, my body was still holding on to those things. Traumatic stress responses can remain stored physiologically until you process it, but you can process it cognitively first, but it can still stay stuck in your body. And that's what happened to me. And I'm not overly woo-woo, okay? And so I understand, I'm a data girl, I'm a strategy gal, I love this personal growth side, but I was kind of like, what do you mean? But it actually did make a really big difference. I wasn't over it. I just had it buried and I logicked my way through it and carried on, which we have to do, but we also have to feel our feelings before burying it. And that was one that really, really helped me. And it honestly is why I added mindset coaching into some of my programs as well. The one change that made a really big difference, please don't hate me for this one, but I cut out caffeine. I love coffee and I still drink my coffee every day. I just drink decaf now. But honestly, I have done a lot of these things and I was feeling better, but there was still this buzz. I still honestly could feel my heart in my chest sometimes. And I had a friend say, Maddie, I cut out caffeine and I really feel so much better. And so I said I was going to try it for 4 days. I would have 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day. I wasn't a caffeine addict, but I did have it every single day. It was my favorite thing in the morning. Definitely I felt super groggy for 24, 48 hours. And then the buzz went away. Truly, this feeling of having to be on all the time went away. I can't even tell you how caffeinated coffee was really impacting me. And I knew if I drank coffee after 11 to noon in the morning, I would not be able to sleep that night. So I knew it impacted me, but I didn't realize it was what was causing so much of my dysregulation. Really, caffeine stimulates adrenaline. It spikes cortisol. It masks fatigue instead of resolves it. And it impacts your blood sugar. So I would wake up, make a cup of coffee and drink a cup of coffee prior to eating breakfast. And then it was basically immediately spiking my blood sugar, setting me off all day. They talk about caffeine on an empty stomach. They talk about all of those things leading into it. So I tried eating breakfast first and then drinking coffee and I still felt like it. So I said, I'm going to try decaf. I thought coffee was kind of just it was just a habit. I was just drinking it every day. It was helping me, waking me up. It was kind of getting there. And it was actually the thing that was keeping me in fight or flight. I feel more stable. This was the final straw that took that buzz away. I would honestly drink a cup of coffee and by noon, I would be like, oh my gosh, why do I feel like I have to take a break? And it wasn't until I was really thinking about it and 2 to 3 o'clock, I would feel actually my productivity hit. I would be like, oh my gosh. And that was because my caffeine was wearing off. Is 2 to 3 o'clock, I would start to feel much better. I would actually not have a slump then. I would start to turn on and then my day was over. And I felt like I didn't get much done that morning because my brain was foggy. I felt like I just couldn't operate. That was a really big one. Again, I'm still drinking coffee. I'm just a decaf gal. 2 more, and then we're going to talk about the impact that this has had on me and a couple of action items that I would recommend that you do or you try if you're resonating with this. I started to also do some breath work. If you are looking for people to do breath work, again, this is a way to kind of move that energy out of your body. I did a couple of EMDR sessions. If you don't know what that is, it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Basically what it is there is this little ball that moves back and forth, and then you're being guided around it and you're watching the ball and it's guiding you into something. And it basically is just really grounding you in the moment. It's really sinking you in to remove this nervous system buzz. And it really did help. Breath work as well, where I would do some, kind of somatic breath work. Slow breathing definitely can stimulate some relaxation. It moves these things through your body and it allowed for me to get some things out and actually get some clarity. I was working out and that was kind of like a crutch for a long time as I would go for a run or I would go lift weights. I would go do something that was my only way to be not anxious. And I would say, oh, it's fine. I will just work out and then my anxiety will go away. But it was actually just, kind of putting a Band-Aid on it. And then I would do the same thing tomorrow. So breath work was a really big one. I would feel physically calm after. I would have a nervous system reset. I would have an emotional kind of like release sometimes. And honestly, even like 5 minutes of just breathing. And when these emotions would pop up, I could sit here and I could breathe and I could breathe in and I could breathe out. And I would say, okay, wait, no, I do feel better. And I knew different breaths to do in different times. And it definitely did really help. Last but not least is I did take my weekends of rejuvenation. Again, if you guys have been here for any amount of time, you know that I highly preach that you need things outside of business. Your business cannot be your identity and your business cannot be your only hobby. You have to have things outside of your business. Otherwise, your business becomes your everything. And if something happens to it, we can't have it where your whole self-worth is dependent on how well your business is doing. So I started to take these weekend rejuvenation weekends that I didn't have to go on vacation. It was just like me, again, my Saturdays off of social media. What else did I want to do? I would go and do a hobby. This week I was painting. Then I made a frame for around it. I didn't make big decisions. I would clean my house on a Sunday and make sure that I had like a system for the week and be ready for it. I didn't feel like I needed to like perform for anything. I really just wanted to take these weekends as how can I refuel? How can I enjoy? So Monday morning I could sit down and feel really good about things because rest is not passive. It's literally active repair for our body. Rest and enjoyment and creativity are things that actually help us be more productive. If I worked 7 days a week, slowly my productivity would go down. But when I would take Saturdays and Sundays off and maybe do just a little bit of planning on a Sunday night for my week, what ended up happening was I started to be more productive come Monday morning. And I found my outcomes were better. I was more productive. My decisions were better. Everything got better. So looking at this list, these are some of the things that I did. I started to do one activity at a time. I regulated my blood sugar. I cut caffeine. I started blocking social media. I started doing nothing. I started mindset coaching to process old business things. I did breath work and I did weekends of rejuvenation. I feel clearer. I feel more stable throughout the day. I feel like I can actually turn off and enjoy my evenings. And some of these things, yes, they are business outcomes, but they're also personal outcomes because enjoying your life is also a win. It's not that my business growth slowed. It's that I actually just started being more effective and actually feeling better throughout my day. I would enjoy my time more. I had more motivation to do more than just like sit on the couch or work. I basically was working from 9 to 5 and then from 5 to 9, we would watch TV or sit and maybe we would go out to dinner. But like we really weren't doing anything because I just didn't really feel like it. Like I was like, no, I just got to do nothing. Like I want to rejuvenate. I would do hobbies on the weekend for sure. But in my evenings, it just got so monotonous. And now I have motivation to do more. I feel less reactive and I feel more steady in my energy, in my mood, in just like my ability to hold everything that I'm holding on a day-to-day basis. I don't feel overstimulated anymore. Again, I'm no specialist here. This is my story. This is an anecdotal story of how I feel here. I really feel like this is the next step of my like freepreneur lifestyle embodied. I was enjoying my life. Don't get me wrong. I had a great life. I would take my weekends off. We would go on trips. I would still be doing things. But even when I was doing things, I wasn't fully present because I still was like, oh my gosh, okay, I know I'm going to have to do this and I know I'm going to have to do that and I'm going to have to do this other thing. And it kind of turned into almost like a paranoia that I was missing something, that I forgot something. What I was able to do here is turn that noise off. So when I'm working, I'm more clear. And when I'm off, I'm able to actually rejuvenate and enjoy better. So I want you to reflect on a couple of these. Are you tired or are you overstimulated right now? Do you know how to sit in silence without reaching for something? Like try to sit there. Like after this, I want you to pause this episode, stop listening to anything and just sit for like whatever you're doing, whether you're driving, you're on a walk, you're making product and just sit. See how quickly it takes for you to grab your phone. See how quickly it takes for you to be like, all right, wait, let me try that. Let me go search this. Let me go look at what this is. Your productivity right now, is it fueled by stability and excitement or kind of reactivity and almost like an adrenaline feeling right now? And when was the last time that you truly felt safe away from everything that you have? Nervous system dysregulation might show up differently for you than it does for me. I don't know how it shows up for everybody. For me, I felt brain fog. I felt like I was buzzing. I felt like I had 12 thoughts at once. I would say that all the time. Like, no, I am like going. I felt like it was just like, let me do this thing before the next thing. And then once I got to the next thing, I had 4 more things to do. Now you don't have to do that. So maybe a couple things for you to try. You can delay caffeine for like 90 minutes after waking. Make sure you eat before, or try decaf. The first day, you might get a headache. The first 2 days, you might get a headache. But after that, you do feel so much better. But if you can delay it and or eat prior, definitely makes a big difference. Try taking a walk the next time with no inputs. And it's going to be weird. I mean, literally the first time that I did this, I went to call my mom like halfway through. And then I was like, no, Maddie, you have to just sit. Notice different colors. Notice what you're seeing. Look at the leaves. Look at the houses, whatever it is. I want you to try to remove one stimulation source a week. So is that listening to a podcast when you cook? What is that? You know, we think of it as habit stacking, but what we're doing is we're just never letting our brains stay silent. You know, we're never letting our brains actually sit with how we're feeling. You know, try some breathing, try breath work, go on YouTube, type in some breath work for stress management and like moving some of that out. Maybe try protecting one day a weekend and say your Saturdays, you're not working on your business. And I am so okay with saying that for you. You could start with an afternoon if you can't do it all day. Keep it doable to start. But look into some of these things. The brick is a great option. I think I have a code of some sort. I'll put that below, but keep it doable for yourself. You know, my blood sugar stuff I did over a long time. You know, I kind of did it incrementally, but then in the last 6 months is when I really started to make a lot of these changes and really start to see it. It doesn't happen overnight. And I am going to note, I did get more anxious before it got better. Like I kind of muddied up the water before it could settle. I was just bringing things to the surface, especially when I was doing kind of like therapy of business. I was really diving into it. I was like getting into the weeds, and all of a sudden I felt like I was like, oh my gosh, there's just like so much happening. And it came up and then it got out. But a lot of times it does get worse before it gets better. Just know that. And I want to give that disclaimer. I don't know if that happens to everybody, but it definitely did happen to me. So I just want to say, you're not lazy. You're not losing your edge. You know, you might not just have to operate that way. You need to recalibrate your nervous system so you can build something sustainable that you can keep forever. 3 out of 5 business owners shut their business down because they are burnt out. And burnout is directly linked to nervous system regulation. Many people shut their business down because they just don't want to deal with it. They just can't handle it. And this stuff is going to allow for you as a business owner to be able to hold the dream business that you want and the dream life that you really can have. Peace is not something that is passive. Peace is not something that has to be earned. Peace is not something that just like happens one day. It really is created. Understanding that, again, these things are things that happen over time. These are some of the more powerful things to do. But when I really sat down and started to tackle this, it's made me feel so much better. Buy a paint by numbers. I have one of those. It'll feel silly, and you're going to try to do some of these hobbies and you're going to hate a couple. Like I didn't like certain things that I tried to do. I didn't like this. I didn't like that. Whether it was Pilates or, you know, a certain yoga class, like it wasn't for me, but I tried it. It got me out of the house and it got me to find the things that actually do really allow for me to settle in and really feel kind of refueled for me to dive back into my business. And so whether or not you're a full-time business owner, you're a 9-to-5 or with a business and a mom, or you're a mom and a business owner, whatever that might be, we hold so much in society in 2026. We hold so much with a connected world that we have. We hold so much as business owners, as people in our world. This is a non-negotiable. If you feel like you're just a high achiever, if you feel like you just operate high, if you feel like you're just constantly running, this is something that has drastically changed how I felt. Even in the last just 6 weeks, I feel so much better. And I have a breath work session tomorrow that is a 2-hour long, breath work. And then we're going to work through some of the things. And I actually get so excited now because I know it's going to make me feel better in the future. I hope that this was helpful for you. If this is a conversation that you really liked, make sure that you let me know. As you know, I always love to hear which episodes you really liked, which comments and conversations that you feel like really stood out to you, because it allows me to create more episodes that work well for you. Remember, only 30% of our active listeners are actually following or subscribed to our podcast. And that means every time you got to go in and search it up. So just make sure that you click the subscribe, you click the like, or you click the follow button, and that allows for all of these episodes to pop up and that you never miss an episode. Just remember, I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Growth Podcast. We put out new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. So if you love this one, make sure that you're subscribed so you never miss a conversation. If you want more conversations with me and other business owners, make sure that you join our completely free podcast community, the Founders Cafe. The link is in the show notes. You can get bonus resources, access to free coaching calls, as well as connect with like-minded business owners like yourself. Make sure that you rate and review the podcast 5 stars, share it with a friend to keep those conversations moving, and come back every Tuesday and Friday. I'll see you there.